You know I run into my baby. I finally found my old blue dream. You know I run into my baby. I finally found my old blue dream. I could that they was mine by the oil and the gas. So, if I could get back my blue jeans, just how happy could one man be? If I could just get back my blue jeans, just how happy could one man be? I got back my blue jeans, you know my baby, because I'm bringing them home to me. If I could just get back my old blue jeans, just how happy now could one man be? If I could just get back my blue jeans, just how happy now could one man be? I got back my blue jeans, you know my baby, she be bringing them home to me.
Greetings everyone, it's Fred Sweet, and welcome to Guitar Media's How to Avoid Any Guitar Scams, as well as our conclusion to how to avoid counterfeit vintage guitars. Alright, for some time I've been shopping for guitars at different places, including guitar shows, Reverb, eBay, Craigslist, so on and so forth. I've basically picked up on, local or in-person sales. You're playing it pretty safe at a guitar show. Most of the dealers are well experienced and renowned, and you're not going to typically run into a lot of guitar scams at guitar shows. As far as online guitar deals, I've found that it's always good to ask for a custom photograph of maybe a part of the guitar that's not enclosed in the listing. Typically, like with a Les Paul or an SG, I'll ask them to take a photo of the back plate off. The reason why I do this is because when you ask for an additional photograph, This lets you know the seller actually has the item in their possession, and it's not just some scam guy that pulled pictures offline and is selling a guitar that he or she may not even own. Once you've established that the seller does have the item, then a lot of times it's a good idea to check out their Facebook account, or if they have an eBay account, check out their selling history, their feedback, so on and so forth. If they have a Reverb account, the more different sources of information you can find on the seller is always a safer bet as far as online deals are concerned. Personally, I try to pick up the guitar in person if and when at all possible. And this also, for me, has been a way to really play it safe, buying guitars online. And then, of course, you don't have to worry about insurance or the damages and shipping. And another thing that you might want to consider is if you're buying a guitar online, if they don't have a storefront, then it might be a good idea to meet at a safe place like a QT, or any place that just has a lot of cameras or a lot of people, and of course a high visibility area where there's a lot of people is always a good rule of thumb.
I wanna give, I wanna live. Be searching for a heart of gold. These expressions I never get keep me searching for heart of gold. And I'm getting old. Keep me searching for heart of gold. I'm getting old. I've been to Hollywood, I've been to Redwood, I crossed an ocean for a heart of gold. And in my mind, it's such a fine mind, it keeps me searching for a heart of gold. I'm getting old. Keep me searching for a heart of gold, and I'm getting old. Getting old. Keep me searching for a heart of gold. Keep me searching and I'm getting old. Keep me searching for a heart of gold. And I'm getting old.
I guess it's time to move on to the ES model section of this video. Welcome to the ES model section of this video. Because I haven't done a lot of research on these guitars, I went ahead and just took a look on Reverb to see what was kicking around, and in my short ventures I was able to find a 58 or 59 Sunburst that still had the original Kluson tuning keys in the case. And the guitar, the minute I saw it, of course it was a Sunburst, and I noticed just right off the bat the inconsistency in the color of the Sunburst on the front of the guitar, and how it seemed to be getting kind of thin around the edges and lighter on one horn than the other, and so on and so forth. And when I saw the back of the guitar, Of course, the sunburst was a lot more pronounced and darker around the edge and just better color. And it just struck me as an honest guitar from the get-go. And then when I saw the original keys, which had started to deteriorate, which of course were replaced, that just was a really good feeling. And I think that really, any of those extremely valuable 58, 59, 60 Gibson model guitars, just because they don't have the original tuning keys that are deteriorating, or maybe the original tuning keys haven't started to deteriorate yet, or whatever the case may be, it's just nice, really nice to see that, because it's a good feeling. It's just something that's a little reassurance there. And of course, those are going to be the most counterfeited out of the Gibson ES model guitars, because they're the most valuable and the most suspect and to look out for across the board. I wouldn't say that I've seen really a lot or as many counterfeit ES model guitars, but once again, I haven't really looked for those or looked out for those. Please stay tuned for some Gibson ES model fun facts, as I really don't talk much more about how to avoid counterfeit vintage Gibson ES model guitars in this video.
Hey Joe, where you going with that gun in your hand? Hey Joe, where you going with that gun in your hand? I'm going down to shoot my old lady, yeah. I caught her messing around with another man. I'm going down to shoot the old lady. I caught her messing around with another man. Hey Joe, I heard you shot your lady down. Hey Joe, I heard you shot your lady down. Yeah, I shot her. I put her 6 feet in the ground. Yeah, I shot her. That ain't too cool, but she's in the ground. Hey Joe, where you gonna run to now? Hey Joe, where you gonna run, Joe? I'm going down south, I'm going way down south, maybe Mexico way. I'm going way down south, going down Mexico way. Ain't no hangman. Ain't no hangman gonna put a rope around me. I said there ain't no hangman gonna put no rope around me.
Alright, welcome to the F-hole section of this video. With Gibson F-hole guitars, across the board, you know, I don't think there's as many forgeries, but still a very, very valuable guitar when they first came out, and definitely the high point for the values of Gibson F-hole guitars would be 1958 and 1959. And basically, that was really one of the greatest times in history for the electric guitar, with the invention of the Gibson Flying V and the Gibson Explorer, as well as the 335, 345, and 355 Gibson guitar models. And so, this being 1967, late 67, early 68, ES355. The thing is with the ES model guitars, you know, typically before 1965, what we see is the stop tailpiece, and those were the most desirable models for the F-hole model Gibson guitars, and the most valuable models, and also the most suspect to be counterfeit. And we have seen, of course, many reissues of the 58 335 natural dot guitar and the dot, you know, era 355 or 335s. And the dots are something that was done away with, I believe, in around 1962. And once again, right around 65, when they did away with the stop tailpiece, they also went from a 1 11/16 nut width down to a 1 9/16 nut width. So 66, you know, late 65, 66, 67, 68, and 69, and into the early 70s would have had either 1 9/16, or I've seen them even as skinny as 1.5 inches. So this is something that takes away from the value, as well as, you know, a guitar that's not originally a stop. And this is something to look for when you're looking at a 60s, especially a 60s and even a 70s ES model guitar, is you want to look at the bottom of the guitar here, because the trapeze tailpiece, when you look at the bottom of the guitar, there was some screws that would hold it in down here. And so a guitar that's been modified from a trapeze tailpiece to a stop tailpiece, there would be some visibly filled in screw holes here, and that would be a tall tale sign that the guitar has been modified and was not originally a stop tailpiece. And so another thing with the Gibson F-hole guitars is I kind of really like the idea of the Bigsby on these guitars, because the Bigsby kind of gives you really that 50s F-hole feel, even on a later 60s or early 70s F-hole guitar, because so many of them came with the trapeze tailpiece or the Lear Vibrola system, which of course was not available in the 1950s. So another thing cool about this particular guitar is the original Grover tuners, and once again, they, you know, were mostly done away with in the 50s, and so it's kind of a cool, funky 50s thing they got going on there. This particular guitar, contrary to popular belief, is not a fretless wonder model. Interesting enough, it came with frets, which is pretty cool, which these frets on this guitar have been dressed, and you can see when you look at the fingerboard closely the lines where it has been filed down. And then other than that, this also is a mono ES355, and so this is another thing to look for on a 345 or ES355, is a lot of times people would take the stereo jack and remove it from the guitar and basically just convert that over to a mono jack, which is a very simple conversion. A lot of people are not so keen on the stereo models, and the stereo models are not as valuable as the mono models. And of the mono models for the ES345 and ES355 were also a lower production number. So there weren't as many of those guitars available. There weren't as many of those guitars available, so there's less of a supply and obviously more of a demand for a mono, which makes it slightly more valuable. Okay, if not dramatically more valuable, and I guess no one may ever know, because of course it's not an everyday guitar, so it's not like they, come up every day for sale and sell every day. So I don't know that they'll ever. Of course, the Reverb price guide is something that I recommend anyone check on any vintage guitar before purchasing any vintage guitar. And this is something, you shouldn't be prideful and think that you know the value. You should always check the Reverb price guide, and when you go to sell the guitar, I think that's a great thing to do, because they're based on actual sold, guitars, and a lot of people will argue with me and say, yeah, but they don't have the pictures, and yeah, who knows, it could have been a busted neck, and yeah. Well, it is what it is. I mean, I don't. The thing is it's a better reflection than any other reflection that I've ever seen. And the reason why I say that is because when you look on eBay, they just, they just don't go back through the years and show you the amount that the guitars have sold for. And so this is a lot better, with a record through the years. And you do have to take into consideration that, yes, maybe, if it's a really low price, maybe the guitar or the amp was not working or was broken. And of course, that does affect the overall picture of the value of those guitars. And of course, you also have to consider, okay, maybe this guitar, it was stereo, or this guitar was a custom color and that one wasn't, and so on and so forth. And so there's obviously a lot more factors than just looking at a guitar and saying, okay, the Reverb price guide said that's what it's worth. So, but still, it's definitely a consideration. And okay, moving on. What else is there to say? Well, once again, going back to the pickups, these guitars, they had PAFs like the SG until 62, somewhere around 62. And so they went to patent sticker pickups in like 63. And then the patent sticker pickups went until about 73, 74. And then they went to the T-tops. And I don't care for the T-tops as much. I just prefer the patent sticker pickups or the PAFs. And interesting enough, and I've also seen this on many other Gold Hardware models, actually PAF construction pickups, and what I mean, you see when you look at the back of the pickup, you'll see Phillips head screws and instead of flat head screws, and the PAFs had Phillips head screws, and they also had a scratch pattern on the side of the dog ears that look like little L's, 2 on each side. And this is something that we see on Gold Hardware guitars like Les Paul Customs and ES345s and ES355s throughout the late 60s and even into the early 70s. In some rare instances, we have actually seen a PAF, like a gold PAF, on some of those guitars. Like one of them will be a PAF, and then sometimes we see like a little scratch pattern on the back of the pickup. And this could be an indication that Gibson scratched the PAF sticker off and applied the patent number pickup. And really, who knows? I've also seen a double pattern, and it's just, to me, it's just very interesting. I don't think, obviously, as many of the gold hardware guitars were going out the door, so there may have been a surplus of those parts at that time, and that would explain the later PAF construction on gold hardware, instruments. So, is there anything else to say? Yeah, well, once again with the finish, and I didn't really say this on the SG, but 72 is pretty much the cutoff across the board for the thinner finishes, and definitely worth mentioning because the sound, and of course the thinner finish paired with the patent sticker pickups, of course it's a superior sound. Let's see, is there anything else to say? Well, I think what I said is good enough, but of course the knobs are another thing that's worth mentioning, that on Gibson ES models, because they started in 1958, they came with the gold speed knobs. Now this is something that was mostly done away with in 1960 with the they started offering the reflector knobs, which they're both really cool. Obviously the speed knobs have more of a 50s vibe and the reflectors have more of a 60s vibe. Well, we see here in 67, and right around 67 was the transition from the reflectors to the witch hats, and some people probably call them top hats, but whatever. It's a totally different style knob, which I personally like these knobs a lot better on the Black Beauty guitars, because the knobs are black and they have a larger black area. I just think they go over a little better on the Black Beauties, and that's just my 2 cents. So, anywho. Oh yeah, of course, and of course the guards, that's another thing. The guards gas off on these, tortoiseshell guards gas off, and so this one's been replaced, and that's typical. And also, it does seem to have an effect on the finish, and of course many vintage guitars are going to have a guard fade anyways, regardless of whether their pick guard has gassed off or not. So is there anything else to say about the Gibson ES models? Yes, of course, the ES 335, 345, and 355 are block through design, meaning that they're semi-hollow body. It's a lot easier to plug one of these guitars into one of these amps and crank it up, and then the fully hollow body guitars, they feed back at much lower volumes. And that's also another thing worth mentioning, that a lot of times we'll see people will take a 330, which is a P90 model, and then modify it to humbuckers. This obviously doesn't make it a 335, it's still a 330, and it's not a block through, and it's something to look out for. Another thing they did is, if you look at 330s, some of them have a much better reach, and it's basically the cutaway stops up here in the early mid 60s, and then in the late 60s on the 330 the reach is more like the 335. It's a lot better reach, and I don't know why they did that, but it's just something that they did. And then of course, so many different models. The depth is also another thing with ES model guitars. Some are thin body and then others are thicker, and this is just something to research before you look to purchase your vintage Gibson ES model guitar. Thanks for watching, and check our channel for our latest videos.